Welcome everyone to the third class in our Introduction to Mindfulness series. Today we're going to be looking at some of the obstacles to our practice. As we know, our brains are thinking machines. That's what we've actually trained them to do. So it's not the most natural thing to be sitting and just be being, we're not producing anything, we're not achieving anything. So it feels almost pointless sometimes. And again, we're just used to being told what to do, to get up in the morning and get to work at this time and then answer this email and be in this meeting, drive home so we can make dinner. But no one's telling us to do this. So the idea is, can we use our practice, be aware of our thoughts, accept them for what they are, and then have the practice be an ability for us to not let them overpower us, not let the aversion, not let the anxiety, not let the boredom overtake us. And just be aware of how we're feeling in a non-judgmental fashion so that we can come into the present moment with that openness, curiosity, and compassion, and a willingness to be with what is. I think I like to say that in every class so we really begin to understand it. But first, I see some new people here. So let's go around the room, introduce them, and then we'll talk about the exercise we had for last week, which was to do a task mindfully. See if you ended up changing the paradigm, your association with that task. And we'll dive into the theme of obstacles and see how we can work with them. And we'll do a sitting practice, and then have some time for sharing and reflection. So yeah, let's go around the room. Welcome to the new people. Thank you for joining. You want to give us your name and let us know if you have a practice and what you hope to get out of this course. Thank you. Great. All right, well, let's talk about the exercise from last week. As I mentioned, when I first encountered this exercise, I chose to use dental floss, something I had kind of done occasionally, knew I was supposed to do it, but just felt it would take too long and it was obnoxious to have to stick my hands up there. Anyway, I did it for a week, and sure enough, it felt so good. My teeth felt great. My dentist loved me. And I just was like, I just can't go to sleep now without using dental floss. So we can change the paradigm, and that's really what this exercise was about. So I took on a new task this last week, my husband's oatmeal pot. So I know it's a silly little thing, but the little things are just as much of a teaching as anything else. So I never liked to clean it. It was full of this gook, and you had to scrub really hard to get it out, and then would clog the sink. And so I literally would just clean around it and leave it for him to clean, which really wasn't very mature. So I tackled it this week, and of course I found out it doesn't take very long. The oatmeal just breaks up quite easily, goes down the sink and is washed away. And it really felt a lot better than being sort of immature about leaving it in the sink. And he really appreciated it because now he'll clean all sorts of things that he doesn't normally clean, because he's so thankful that I cleaned that. So that was a win-win. Does anybody want to share if they had any sort of a similar experience, or if they came to any insights during their mindful activity? That would be great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, well, let's talk about some common obstacles to our practice. So the idea is, again, since no one is telling us to do it, it's kind of hard to sit down and just do it. And also, it's not goal-oriented. We're not really producing something. It's not quick. There are so many reasons why it's uncomfortable. And it's not unusual. Does anybody want to share what they find most difficult for them? Yes, aversion, boredom, sleepiness, time. I actually thought during this pandemic that time wouldn't be an issue because we seem to have so much time. But then I realized, well, some people have their children at home and they're homeschooling them, and some people are taking care of their parents, and some people are working even harder because of all the Zoom meetings and the expectation that things need to be done even more quickly. So time can be a big issue, even if it's just 5 minutes. And these are all common, and they occur to all meditators, even long-term meditators like myself. But the idea is, can we do with our obstacles the way we do with our thoughts? Can we label them, acknowledge them, and let them go? Can we say, just because I feel that doesn't mean I always have to feel it? In the recognizing and in the releasing, that's the real important part of our practice. I often think of myself as like the sky, and my thoughts or the obstacles, they're like clouds. I just let them go. Just let them pass on by. Try not to get hung up in their stories. Of course, it's always easier to just get up and get a piece of pie, turn on the television. We're very used to multitasking. We're very used to being distracted. There's obviously a resistance to just doing nothing, just being and sitting. It doesn't feel right. But in the same way that we can change the paradigm around a task that we have to do, can we change the paradigm around sitting? Because it is a gift you give yourself. And if we can begin to look at it in a similar fashion, that the oyster creates a pearl from that irritation, a foreign object that comes along and it coats it with the nacre day after day and creates this jewel. If we can think of it in that light, think of our practice in that same metaphor, the gift we give ourselves, a jewel we cultivate through our sitting. We begin to see the value, but it's not quick. As Shinzen Young said, it's deep, but it's not quick. And we're just used to quick and not deep. But that sense of immediate gratification has really brought on a sense of dissatisfaction. We're looking for something deeper. We just have to put in the work to get there. And we know there will be discomfort. There's always discomfort. Life has peaks and valleys, highs and lows, and so does our practice. And it's in the acceptance of that. You can't have one without the other. You can't have the high without the low. You can't have the peak without the valley. There's a wonderful quote from a mountain climber, and I can't find his name, but I remembered it because it struck me. It's so beautiful. Where he says, the mettle of a man, which he means like the strength of a human being, is not judged by the heights that he ascends to, which a mountain climber you would think, but the valleys he climbs out of. And we all have climbed out of already so many valleys. I personally think of, in this time, I think of 9/11. I was 5 blocks from the World Trade Center. I saw both planes hit the towers, and I was in shock. And I had to run in and get my daughter out of her preschool because we thought that might be a target. And we had to run home, and we watched the towers burn and the smoke fill our neighborhood. And for months afterward, life was very, very different. But people came together, the neighborhood came together, the city came together. We found a new strength and a new resilience in that surviving. So I often think of that time now and know that we'll get through this. I mean, we've already seen some benefits from this time of the way the canals in Venice are cleaner, and the animals have come back to Yellowstone. The air pollution in all of these cities has been so reduced. So there will be brighter times, and we just have to know that they come together, peaks and valleys, highs and lows, and we have to change our association with it. There are only 2 things we have control over: our actions and our attitudes. We can't control the external circumstances of this pandemic. We can't make them get a vaccine any sooner. We can't make them relax the restrictions. We just have to know that we're doing the right thing by staying at home and staying safe and knowing that it'll change. So in that way, can we change our association, what we presume to be discomfort? Can we think of it as a teachable moment, as a lesson for us? Is there something for us to get out of this that can make us stronger and wiser? There's a poem by a 13th century Persian poet called Rumi that is used in every mindfulness class, and I'm going to read it to you here because I wouldn't be able to quote it perfectly otherwise. And he says, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." So we can invite them in. We don't necessarily have to have a long dinner with them. We can just have a cup of tea. But the idea is to, again, change your association with something you perceive as difficult, something you perceive as uncomfortable, and see if there's a teachable moment for you. See if there's something you can learn from it. And in sitting, is there a reason you have this aversion? There may be something that you're not ready to face. Maybe something that you've layered over. And in sitting, we come to know ourselves. We come to accept ourselves, and we peel back some layers. So in the first few times, it can be uncomfortable. But if we learn to associate that with a teachable lesson, with a pearl we're creating, can we even view it like the way the pyramids were built, day by day, brick by brick? And not be concerned with how long it takes or how high it goes. Just know that in the sitting, we're laying this very, very stable foundation. This foundation to build an inner capacity that doesn't rely on external stimulation, that doesn't rely on distraction and multitasking and other people and maybe alcohol, prescriptions. We can build this inner resilience through our awareness, through our willingness to be with what is. That compassion too, that non-judgmental sense that we're just human. And in so doing, accept what is. And it doesn't mean a passive acceptance that nothing has to change. It just means once we accept it, we can change it. What you don't accept, Eckhart Tolle says, what you resist persists. So just knowing that there may be stories we tell ourselves that we don't necessarily have to accept. In fact, scientists have shown we have two ways of viewing ourselves. One is called the narrative self, and the other is the experiential self. The narrative self is the story we tell ourselves. I always get angry. I always find sitting uncomfortable. I always get anxious around crowds. These are stories we tell ourselves. With the experiential self, it's a sense of being in the present moment, this sense of feeling the experience as it is without the story that we tell ourselves. And of course, science has shown that mindfulness emphasizes the experiential self and deactivates the region of the brain that is focused on the narrative self. So again, we don't necessarily have to hold on to the stories we always tell ourselves. Can we see if there's a different way of looking at things and not hold on to them? There's a wonderful quote from Tara Brach, and I'm going to read that as well, where she says, "Our beliefs of our life story can be limiting. It's important to challenge that. And remember, just because you believe it doesn't mean it's true. The unhappiness you derive is from your own narrative, and your self-talk is in the head. So it's important not to mistake that for who you really are." So in the same way that we changed the paradigm around some task we had to do because we did it mindfully, in the same way that an oyster creates the pearl, the pyramids were built, can we day by day change the obstacles into gifts, change that discomfort into a teachable lesson, and embrace all that comes, because they could be bringing us gifts from beyond. So thank you. I hope this was helpful. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have anything to share, that would be awesome. Thank you.